What's up, you beautiful Chinese language learners? Fred Barton from Chinese is Easy again here, the channel that makes learning Chinese easy and demystifies all that BS about it being an impossible language to learn. In today's video, I want to address another question from a viewer, which is, what was my career path and what advice would I give to anybody who's looking to pursue a career in Chinese? So, first of all, my career path. I didn't have any background in Chinese. People always assume because I was an interpreter for the ambassador in Beijing and I worked in the embassy and had a high-ish level job, they assumed that I must have had loads of background in Chinese and I grew up speaking Chinese and all this stuff. Okay, that's not true. I didn't learn any Chinese properly until my second year of being in China when I was 24, turning 25. So I had some high school French, some high school German. I got a C in my German exam when I was in high school, when I was 18. So I didn't have a glorious Chinese learning background or a glorious language learning background by any means. I stumbled into learning Chinese when I was out in China. I had finished 1 year teaching in the British Council down in Chongqing. I moved up to Qingdao to work in a language school, which was awful. I was working with some kind of weird people and I didn't like the setup there. The hours were long, the money was bad, and I was like, what am I going to do? Where am I going with my life? I didn't have a career path. I had a undergraduate degree in Southeast Asian studies, which I also flunked and got a C in. So I was 24, didn't have any career prospects, sat on a park bench one night thinking like, God, you know, what am I doing with my life? And I thought, okay, I need to learn Chinese. I'm out in China. That will give me some focus. That will give me some direction. And hopefully I can get a job through that. So that was how I came about studying Chinese. I kind of fell into it out of necessity because I did not have any career path and I didn't really have any, you know, prospects or options at that point. So I kind of had to do something. So I studied by myself for the first year. I prepared for the HSK. I taught myself predominantly, and then I topped up with some lessons in the evening to prepare for the HSK, and I did that while I was working as a teacher all the way for like 5 years while I was in China, and I did that. And then once I'd done that, I got myself up to HSK level 10, which is undergraduate level. So I basically taught myself degree level Chinese. And then I moved back to the UK and I did an MA, a master's degree in Chinese interpreting and translation at the University of Bath. And this was a big victory for me because, you know, I'd flunked my first degree and then I'd got into this top 10 university in the UK to study my master's. And it was, apart from Oxford and Cambridge, it's one of the best schools for that, for translation studies. So I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet. I'm just trying to show you what's possible if you do apply yourself and study hard by yourself. So I did all that and everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. I completed my master's degree and everyone was saying, wow, now, you know, the world is just going to be your oyster. You speak Chinese, you're going to be rolling in money. Chinese is an economic superpower. So I was all excited. I went out into the workplace. I sent out my CV and nothing happened. I didn't get any replies. I didn't get hired for any jobs. And I actually ended up on welfare in the UK. You get like job seekers allowance, which is, you know, if you don't have money and you're looking for jobs, the government will give you a stipend, will give you some money. So I was actually on the dole. They call it the dole. I was on benefit, on welfare at that point. And I was just doing a few freelance gigs for very, very bad money as well. Working in hospitals and doing public service interpreting. I found it very enjoyable. I loved the work, but it wasn't well paid. And I was only making a few £1,000s a year and having to supplement that with the money from the government. So I was like 30 at this point. And as you might imagine, I was actually quite bitter and depressed because I'd spent 6 years playing the long game. Everyone had told me, you know, learning Chinese is a great thing to do. It's going to open up the whole world and all these career paths. And here I was, you know, living off money from the government. So I was very depressed. I couldn't find any jobs in the UK. This is 2010, 2011, after the economic crash. And all that I could get, the only positive response I got was from the British Council, which is just by coincidence. They were the people that I went out to China with in the first place. And they offered me an internship in Beijing. And I was 30 years old. So if you can imagine doing an internship when you're 30, I got out there. Everybody else was like 21. And they were paying me 6,000 RMB, which is like £600, which is about 750, 800 US dollars. And so this was a difficult situation for me, a bitter pill to swallow. Having done all this work and had such high expectations, I was now living on like £150 a week in this internship, which was really for fresh graduates, and I was 30. So I felt humiliated. I was getting more depressed, more bitter, and more dejected. And on top of this, there wasn't even any work for me to do. So I would go in and just make wish lists on Amazon and stuff like that every day. So anyway, I threw that in after about 5 weeks and I thought I'll just go freelance. I went freelance and I got some interpreting and translation gigs. And this was good. I got some lucrative gigs, one with the World Bank, which was very good, translating some memoirs from one of the former leaders of the World Bank, or the China Development Bank, sorry. And this was good. But I got to say, it is tough. I was working like 12 hours a day, sitting in this crappy room in Beijing because I didn't have money, and getting a bad back, sitting on like a £5 chair from Carrefour, and just, working my arse off translating. So I did that for a little while. And in the meantime, I was applying for jobs at the embassy because that was really the best job I could get in Beijing at that time. And after quite a few applications, I tried for a few different jobs, and then I landed this really ideal job for me, which was in the foreign and security policy team. And it was like a foreign policy analyst / interpreter translator role. And I really loved that when I got into that job. It turned out to be a great fit for me. But it was a tough path to get there. So that then brings me on to some of my advice for other people. So anyone who's going to look for a career with Chinese, I would say, as you can probably tell from what I've just said there, the marketplace is very competitive and it can be difficult out there. One of the main problems I found was that for all the jobs that I was going for, there would be Chinese people who had often studied abroad in the UK or the US, and they had got very good degrees as well, and they could obviously speak amazing Chinese and English, and often their English was better than my level of Chinese because they had been learning it from the age of 10, they had lived abroad, and I had only been studying it for a few years part-time. So it's quite hard to compete with people like that. But there are a few ways you can get an edge, and I'll come on to that. So first of all, I would say the marketplace is competitive, and I'm not saying this to put anybody off. I'm just trying to give you some honest advice. What I think will help you is by combining your Chinese with something else. If you just go the route that I did and just have Chinese, it's quite difficult. It limits you then to just translation or interpreting roles. And as I say, normally Chinese people are going to be able to beat you in that sector because they've been learning it from like a very, very young age. So you can get an edge by combining them, two subjects. So if I had like a background in international relations and Chinese, I would have got that job even more easily that I got in the end. What actually happened was I had to teach myself some international relations right before the interview, and I managed to pass the tests in the interview really well, and that's why I got that job. So try to combine subjects, I think. Going just Chinese on your own limits you, and is also going to put you up against Chinese speakers, native speakers who also speak great English, and they're probably going to beat you in those situations. Secondly, what I would say is I don't think doing a degree in Chinese is really worth it. I've met other people who've done degrees from good universities in England and all that stuff, spent 3 years. You come out of it and it's not going to unlock the marketplace on its own, as I said, because it's just a single subject. And also, I felt that I progressed, even though I was studying on my own and part-time, I was going like as fast as these guys. In a few years, I had got myself up to postgrad level part-time. So I believe those university degrees are a bit long-winded, especially, right, if you're not in China and you're doing a degree in Chinese at a European or an American or Australian university. I don't think that's the best way to go. What I would suggest is do a degree in economics or whatever your passion is, or whatever you're interested in, or whatever you think will help you in the job market. And I would try and combine that with Chinese. And I believe you can study Chinese on your own to a high level. You could get a native Chinese speaker. If you're not in China, you could get them to come to your house and you could practice with them in your spare time while you're studying another degree as well. But what I would really recommend, which is the best, is to get out to China at some point. So say you're living in Germany and you're studying economics, you could study Chinese on your own at home, try and get a tutor, try and get a language exchange going, because there's Chinese students pretty much everywhere throughout Europe and the US and wherever who would be willing to exchange with you. And then try and get out on a summer course or do a Christmas course, or go out as much as you can when you can to do these intensive language courses and build up your Chinese as a second string to your bow. Don't put all your eggs in that Chinese basket, I would say. You want to diversify your risk and build up a more rounded skill set. So really, Chinese can be learned on its own, as I did, although I was in the country, but you really want to get out to China at some point. So you might do it, say you're doing economics in Frankfurt, you might do a degree in economics, get that degree, and then think, right, I'm going to go really hard on Chinese now. You might have been studying it in your spare time via videos like this and with a language partner. Then you could go out and do one of those 1 year, 2 year courses and really smash it. And if you were doing a 2 year intensive course in a university in China, or even a 1 year course, maybe you might be able to get yourself up to degree level, because degree level, what they teach at universities outside China, from what I've seen from other friends and stuff who've done it, it's not that high. It's like HSK level 6, or 10 or something like that. But you can learn that by yourself. You don't need a degree for that, because they teach you a lot of extraneous stuff as well in the degree course. They'll teach you Chinese philosophy and history, and all. It's really interesting. But if you want to learn the language, just hit it hard by yourself in your spare time. Get out to China as much as possible and maybe do an intensive course out there in the summer or after you finish your first degree in your home country. Alternatively, get out to China, and do an intensive course out there. But I would say, try and top that up or combine it with a degree from your home country, because the fact of the matter is, and I don't want to offend people and this might sound unfair, degrees from China don't hold as much weight as degrees from either Europe or the US if you're watching this. That's why Chinese students pay so much money to come and study in England, in the US, in Germany and France. So to wrap up then, I would say the marketplace is competitive. A degree in Chinese is probably not going to be enough by itself. I think a wiser thing is to diversify your risk and build up your skill set more. Try and combine Chinese with another subject, so that if one thing doesn't work out, you can fall on the other, or you might find a role that combines both of those things together. I would secondly say that I don't believe degree courses in non-Chinese countries to learn Chinese are worth it, because I think the pace is too slow. I think you can study by yourself and or get out to China and learn it more quickly on your own out there. So that would really be my advice to you guys. As I said, I studied a lot by myself. A lot of Chinese is just sitting down and you have to do memorization and stuff like that, so that can be done on your own. So try and spread your risk, spread your skill set, but get out to China at some point and learn out there, and just do an intensive course, a summer course or a 1 year or a 2 year course if you can, and try and build up different aspects of your skill set. And I think that should give you a better chance in the marketplace and give you just a more rounded kind of skill set and greater options in the workplace. Another thing I would say is, if you do just study Chinese, just doing interpreting and translation, it can be quite laborious. It might not be what you want to do. Therefore, if you have international relations, if you have economics or something else, law, you can combine the two and you might find some very interesting roles which combine both of those and give you a chance to use your Chinese skills, but also keep it varied by adding something else in there for your work. So those are my thoughts on careers using Chinese. Please let me know if that was helpful. Leave your comments below as always, and please also subscribe here and check out the other videos here. And I'll speak to you guys all very, very soon. Take care.